So, an extremely rich millionaire podcaster named Sam Harris recently came under fire for saying that Trump is worse than Osama Bin Laden. And the craziest thing about this whole thing is how privileged can you be able to say that Osama bin Laden is better than a former president, right? Because you got to keep in mind, too, that some people may not know who Osama bin Laden is, but literally, one of the worst human beings that have ever existed. The amount of atrocities that Osama bin Laden has actually committed, publicly and not publicly, is so disturbingly high. And for someone to say something like this and be serious about it kind of goes to show you one, the guy's either a moron, or two, he truly doesn't understand just how lucky he is that he's in America. Lord, so let's get right into it. So, Sam Harris, the noted American author and public intellectual, if you say so, caused a stir on social media when he told listeners to his podcast that former President Donald Trump is a worse person than Osama bin Laden. I've said on several occasions that I think Donald Trump is a worse person than Osama bin Laden. Harris said on a recent episode of his Making Sense podcast, which, by the way, nothing he says basically made sense, right? So, let's actually play his audio so we could actually hear exactly what he says.
Unlike bin Laden, it is patently obvious that Trump isn't psychologically normal. He really is missing something that almost every other person on Earth has. He is an absolute black hole of self-regard. When I say that wherever you are on Earth, you could probably walk 1,000 miles in any direction and not meet a less admirable human being than Trump, I mean it.
Jeez. Okay. So Harris, an atheist, neuroscientist, and philosopher, said he understands why such a statement is surprising, but insists it wasn't meant to be hyperbolic. I can defend every word of a statement like that, Harris continued. By the way, keep this in mind, right? That Sam Harris is perfectly okay if Hunter Biden, his laptop, had basically dead bodies on there of children that he basically hid in like a basement, right? He would be okay with that. Keep that in mind. Let's see. So, what I can't defend are people's misunderstandings and erroneous extra extrapolations of a statement like that. Harris sought to clarify his comments by saying Bin Laden, the Al Qaeda arc terrorist who masterminded the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks that killed close to 3,000 people, was more or less a normal human being psychologically, which is beyond one of the most moronic statements anyone probably has ever said, right? Was more or less a normal human being psychologically? Really? Do you not realize that Osama bin Laden literally tortured people, assassinated people, killed people, raped people, murdered children, raped children? Like Osama bin Laden is quite literally one of the worst human beings that have ever existed on this planet. Quite literally. I'm still kind of like somewhat surprised as to how stupid someone can actually be. And here's the thing: you could hate Trump, okay, hate Trump, right? But to compare Trump to a literal terrorist, a terrorist that committed some of the most heinous acts imaginable, right? And killed massive amounts of innocent people. And like in your mind, somehow it makes sense to view Osama bin Laden as a better human being than a former president that you dislike. It's like, oh, Lord. He was just living in the grip of a dangerous and idiotic worldview, Harris said of bin Laden. And this is the thing that also kind of surprises me too, because there's been family members, I think actually quite a few family members of Osama bin Laden that quite openly tell about Osama bin Laden's past and also like as he was a kid, where even as a kid he would basically torture people. Okay? Like this isn't a good dude. So Harris said the Saudi terrorists created immense harm and that it was very good that we killed him. So here's the thing, right? So he thinks that it was very good that we killed Osama bin Laden, but because Trump is now, he says, views that Trump is worse than Osama bin Laden, so then that means that Sam Harris wants Trump to be killed, right? Isn't that basically what he's saying? The meaning behind this. But within the framework of his odious beliefs, he demonstrated many virtues, Harris said of bin Laden. He was a man who certainly seemed to be capable of real self sacrifice. Well, that is 100% quite literally BS because he didn't have the balls to end it himself. He had his underlings end themselves while they were killing innocent people, right? Osama bin Laden was straight up a cat, right? He never had the balls to end it himself. Oh, Lord. So the podcast host said, calling bin Laden a man who was committed to ideals beyond his narrow self interest, which is, again, not true. And bin Laden was, by all accounts, personally quite courageous, Harris said. Harris mused that while he didn't know bin Laden personally, it wouldn't surprise him at all if he learned that bin Laden was someone of real integrity and generosity and compassion in his dealings with fellow Muslims. Which, again, you're a moron because he even tortured fellow Muslims. He had so many people that actually hated him. So none of these things can be said about Donald Trump, Harris said. Trump is without question one of the least honest and most malignantly selfish human beings I have ever come across. The thing is, Trump is perfectly open that he's looking out for himself. He's very obvious about it. Oh, Lord. Like the biggest thing that kind of bothers me reading like a story like this is again reading something by someone who is filthy rich in a country where he has the protection of the Constitution to say these sort of things and nothing bad happened to him, right? If he said this about Osama bin Laden while Osama bin Laden was in power and he was there, guess what would happen to him? He would no longer be alive. So you can't compare the two as if they are even remotely the same. Harris speculated that if Trump were a better person, he would be worse in many ways. A brave, self sacrificing, and idealistic Trump, who was capable of being strongly committed to something beyond his narrow self interest, would be capable of creating much greater harm in the world. But he's not, Harris said, calling Trump a child in a man's body who lies as freely as he breathes. So here's the thing. How could you then say that Osama bin Laden is better than Trump, or that Trump is worse than Osama bin Laden with this statement? You're contradicting yourself. So, unlike bin Laden, it is patently obvious that Trump isn't psychologically normal. And Harris's clarification was panned online. Didn't think the clarification could get much worse than the original statement, but he made sure it did, one Twitter user commented. When worse than Hitler has been so overused, they now resort to, well, bin Laden wasn't so bad compared to Donald Trump, another Twitter user wrote. This dude needs to be committed, but this is the thought process of the left, one Twitter user wrote of Harris. They can't let it go. And last month, Harris raised eyebrows when he told the Trigonometry podcast that he supported Twitter's decision to ban Trump's account. And again, like, the biggest thing about this story, right, is you have this quite literally BS spewing out of the mouth of basically a contradicting hypocrite while he's living in a country that allows him to spew this nonsense, right? Again, if he basically lived in almost any other country, he would be so screwed. Let's see some of the comments if there are comments, because this is just so disturbingly stupid. Oh, okay, so there's no comments about this. Interesting. That is very, very interesting. Although, yeah, interesting. Honestly, this is just really sad to see, right? I mean, if you stumble upon this, feel free to give your thoughts about this, because when I stumbled upon this story on this article, at first I kind of didn't really believe that someone would be this stupid to say something like this. But then I realized, wait a minute, this guy is a filthy rich millionaire that gets paid to hear himself talk to a bunch of people that literally just want to believe everything that he says. I don't know. This is just sad, right? It's sad because, like, there's probably other people that believe this. There's probably people that believe even more than this. And it doesn't really make sense, right? Because here's the thing. You could hate Biden, you could hate Trump, you could hate Sam Harris, you could hate Osama bin Laden, you could hate all these people, right? That's a cool thing if you like live in America, have rights. You can hate whoever you want. You have the freedom to hate whoever you want. Heck, even if you didn't live in America, you have the freedom to hate whoever you want to hate, right? But when you basically make comments and claims like this that are basically factually incorrect, right? Because you literally have someone who is a literal terrorist, killed multiple people, didn't even have the balls to end himself for his own beliefs, and you try to claim that other people are worse than him. There's not that many other people worse than Osama bin Laden in the history of mankind. Not that many more, right? So for you to try to like make a statement like this and try to claim that Trump, right, like you described, this man child is somehow worse than a terrorist that tortured, raped, murdered innocent people for his religious beliefs, and also not his religious beliefs, because he also did these things to other Muslims. you're just a moron, right? Sam Harris is just a moron, and it's just sad to see something like this out there because like you would expect people with a massive following, with massive influence, to at least be slightly a little bit more self aware, a little bit, I don't know, honest about factual information. But then again, this is also the same person that would not have cared as to Hunter Biden's laptop being actually true and it actually being released. And that even if that laptop had one of the most heinous things, he would be okay with that because it would prevent Trump from winning the election. Like, I really wonder if Sam Harris has like taken some sort of drug or something, or had some sort of psychotic break where like his brain is like melting or something. Because regardless of how much you hate someone, to literally say that Osama bin Laden is better than that person is beyond stupid.